Flynn is a beloved thought leader in the areas of online entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and lifestyle businesses. He is routinely celebrated for his transparent leadership style and authentic principles. Pat overcame career adversity at an early age by finding his own path and true passion. Despite his success in business, Pat's greatest joys are spending time with his family and friends, as well as helping inspire and educate others on how to succeed with their own entrepreneurial careers. Pat has been featured in the New York Times and Forbes magazine for his accomplishments and has recently been enjoying talking about his story and business strategies in front of large crowds at various conferences and events in the United States. So without wasting any more time, I want to bring to you Mr. Pat Flynn himself.
Mid 2008, I learned I was gonna get laid off, and it sucked because this was like my dream job. I had landed this job right after college, and it was perfect. Everything that I was doing was perfect. I was all on that path, climbing the corporate ladder, contributing to my 401k. I had just proposed to my wife. Everything was going perfect, and even though I had done everything perfect, I was getting kicked out of this industry. Now, luckily, I had about 3 months of time to get myself prepared for this layoff because I was sort of in charge of a few projects and they couldn't just let me go on that day. So I had to close up some stuff. And that gave me some time to really reflect on what I was going to do next. And that's when I got really interested in online business. I discovered a podcast called Internet Business Mastery with Jeremy and Jason. And on that show, I had listened to an episode with a guy who was talking about how he was making a living by teaching people how to pass the project management exam. And he was doing this all online. It was really inspirational. And I had a blog that I had set up that I hadn't touched for maybe 6 months at this point that I created just to help my exam so I could pass this exam and climb the corporate ladder. I actually passed this exam in early 2008, let the site sit there that I was just basically using to keep track of my notes and share with a couple coworkers. Never had any intention of turning it into a business. But that's actually what it ended up being after I discovered this podcast and got more information about what I could do online. To make a long story short, I turned this blog I had that was really just for me into a business to help other people pass this exam too. I launched an ebook study guide, practice exams and other products down the line to help people pass, and it just really was life-changing for me. That first month I launched my ebook was in October of 2008 on this site for an audience that I didn't even know was there already at the time, because when I had just published this blog just for myself, Google found it, a lot of other people found it and started sharing it, and I had no idea, I still have no idea how long that was happening before I sort of put some tracking tools on the site and discovered all this activity. But anyway, to make a long story short, I published this ebook and I had made more money, 2.5, 3 times more money in that month than I would have made, in architecture. And it just was a very fortunate and perfect sort of transition into online business. And it wasn't easy. It was very scary. I didn't know what I was doing. I got a lot of help from a lot of people simply by asking and just putting myself out there. And I think it really helped that I was going to get laid off, because that sort of drove me and gave me the really push that I needed to take these risks that I probably wouldn't normally take. And after that point, things just started happening. I started making more money in that business. I started the Smart Passive Income blog, which is where most people know me from now. And on this blog now, I create new businesses and build businesses publicly and show people what works and what doesn't work, so that other people can be inspired and use that information to help them when they set up their own online businesses as well, either full-time or on the side. And I just am so fortunate to have the community I have there now. And I have a podcast that just passed 5 million downloads, a YouTube channel with 2.5 million views. It's just blown up. I've been doing public speaking now and all these things that I never would have dreamed of doing. And here I am, and I'm sort of become and sort of accidentally been put into this leadership role in the online space as the transparent and authentic person. And I think that happened because I got into it in a way that, was sort of different than everything else I saw out there. When I first got online, I was like, okay, what is everyone doing? I'm going to do that. And I started to see what everyone was doing, and it was like not making me feel really good. It was a very scammy industry.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, why don't I just bring honesty and bring authenticity into the game? And sadly, that's what's making me stand out. And I say that not because I'm not happy that I've gotten this successful. I'm absolutely blessed, but because transparency and honesty is making me stand out. That just is a little scary to me. But I've sort of taken this leadership role, and I'm here to lead by example and share my story and do what I can to help people out.
Yeah, and I tell you, that's an amazing story. And just after, like I kind of told you today, I had a hockey game I went and played, and on my way back, I wanted to listen to a podcast where you were even on other shows. And I'm telling you, every time I hear your story, I really get shivers down my spine because it really is true. It's just, if you stop and think about the actual realities of life, like you were at a job to where I believe it was you were getting paid $60,000 a year. That was.
Yeah, I had just gotten promoted actually, and that was more, I was the youngest person to get promoted. Everything was perfect at the time.
Sure. $60,000 a year. And for my fans, obviously they're entrepreneurs, who obviously want to make a difference in their life. Now, $60,000 a year, maybe a lot to some people, but when you got laid off and you, just like your book, let go, but then went in, and now, if you don't mind sharing, because I know you shared, that's what really makes you authentic and holds you obviously aside from a lot of the other people in the industry, is you share your income reports. Now you generate on an average that in a month. So 12 months, crazy. 12 months, it's absolutely crazy. 12 months worth of work. Stop and think about this, people. It's 12 months worth of work going 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, but compressed down into 1 month, multiply that by 12. You can do the math and kind of get your mind to where, it's doable, because a lot of what we're going to talk about on this show is going to be about beliefs and your whole belief system, about, what you believe is real really can become reality if you really start taking action in your daily routines. But, going into that, what do you believe, Pat, was the number one reason why, or is the number one reason why, entrepreneurs actually fail to take action in actually moving online and actually taking their business to the next level online?
I mean, well, there's a lot of different reasons why people fail or don't get to that point. I mean, a lot of times it's because we are too, we live in a world where we want results right away. And if you want to see results as an entrepreneur, you can't expect results immediately. And we hear about these overnight success stories and things like that, which always drive us and inspire us. And then when we put in the work, we're like, oh, well, it's not happening overnight for us. Maybe we're not good at it, or maybe it's just this is the right idea. But I swear, if you go into every one of those overnight success stories and you actually sit down and talk to those people who make those things happen, that overnight success probably took years to get to that point. You think of Tim Ferriss in his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, when he exploded. That book was actually turned down 22 times by 22 different publishers before it finally got through. And I had him on my podcast and talked about how much work he put in to get the word out there and connect with people and actually build real relationships at conferences in person to make this book happen and get to the New York Times bestseller list. When you think of Angry Birds, the game we all know and the one that put the map on Rovio, the company, that was their 60th game that they created. Oh. A lot of people don't know that, but that was their 60th game. And finally, after 60 games, one took off for them, and now they're doing really well, obviously. And they have all these different versions of Angry Birds that come out like every 2 months, and they're making bank, right? My success story, it does sound like almost it's overnight too. Like one time back in 2008, I just started to write an ebook and publish it on the blog, and all of a sudden I start making $8,000 to $10,000 a month. Although that was the case, that wasn't, I didn't just start the site then. The site was up for a year and a half, gaining momentum, building, credibility in the industry as I was just writing my notes. And again, I had no idea other people were looking at it, but that's what ended up happening. So it wasn't an overnight success story as well. So that's the first thing, really expecting results right away and not giving their business ideas an actual chance to sort of bloom and become what they could be. Another thing that holds a lot of people back in the sort of same regard is that we as entrepreneurs just have so many ideas, and we divide our focus into all these different cool things. We have bright light syndrome. We want to do this, and we hear about this other thing that sounds like it could be cool, so we do that instead, and then we add like 4 or 5 projects on top of each other. And I tell you, and I always say this, 50% of a project that's done is 0% to the potential audience. You can't make 50% income from a project that's only 50% done. That's not how it is. You have to go and follow through, push all the way through. And that doesn't always mean every time you follow through that you're going to be successful. It just means that you've finally at least given it a chance to succeed. Because if you don't go all the way through and follow through, then you're not giving yourself a chance to succeed. We could just talk this whole hour about things holding people back. A lot of things that held me back was the fear of failing. Right, because I had always done everything right up to that point. I was a 4.0 student. I got into a great college. I did all the extracurriculars. I became leadership in those extracurricular activities. And I wasn't sure if I was going to succeed or not when I got laid off and started writing this ebook. And that's another hard thing is again, like I was writing this ebook and trying to build this sort of momentum into selling something. When you're doing that, you don't see results right away. You're not trading your time for money anymore. You're investing time up front, and it can be really hard to do that because we're so used to trading X amount of time for X amount of dollars. In the beginning, you're going to have to trade a crap load of time and not see anything from it, and then have it hopefully pay you back in the future.
Yeah. Speaking of Back to the Future, that's one of your favorite movies, right?
Nice. Yeah. I don't know if I'm like subconsciously add that in there, but yeah, dude, like I have I don't know if you can see this on the camera. It's kind of like my poster here up against the wall.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm a fan of yours. I've actually seen pictures where you have it in the background where you talked about, people instantly relate right away. If you take a picture with Back to the Future, for example, and people see that right away, they're like, oh my God, he likes it. He likes it as well. So, they instantly, you create that credibility and that connection with another person.
Right.
It's brilliant. It really is. Yeah. And that's, true story. I actually went to visit out in Chicago, or as they would say, Chicago. I went to go visit my aunt out there when I was, I think it was about 10 or 12. Went and my brother and I sat down in Chicago on vacation and actually watched all 3 of the series of Back to the Future for like the 10th time. I don't know why, but it brought me back memories when you actually started. Once I think it was on your podcast, I heard once you said you liked it, and it was like, oh my God, it right away brought back to my head that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I share that stuff not because I'm like, oh, consciously, if I share this, other people are going to be like, yes, and then they're going to follow me and they're going to buy my stuff. No, I just share it because that's who I am.
Sure.
I mean, when you have real conversations with people you just met for the first time, when you see that you have some commonality, that's what you talk about. That's what you connect with. That's what you remember those people by. Like if you talk to someone and all of a sudden you realize that they went to the same college as you, you start talking about the college or the experience you had or what year you graduated. And that becomes a starting point for that relationship. And that's why I go out of my way to share things about myself, not to make things up, but to just be that connector with people who discover me for the first time, or even people who have been around me for a while. That's why at the beginning of each of my podcast episodes, I actually pay money to have a voiceover guy say a totally different fact about me. And I'll go up to people, meet people at conferences, and they'll say, hey, Pat, like, dude, like I was in the marching band too, or like random things like that. And it's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've shifted as a society. I remember because I own an offline business as well. We're a home security company. And I noticed the sales reps that are coming in, and I've been training people how to become powerful salespeople for a really long period of time. And I've noticed we've evolved. We've kind of changed as a society. And, people want to come in now. As if you look at all the reality shows on TV and all this, it really gets into the lives of who you're going to be doing business with. And that's what they want these days. And that's what I noticed. Would you kind of agree with that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is an absolute trend in the world going on right now. I mean, even think about all the Marvel movies that are coming out, like Batman. I mean, we're getting deep into their stories, into their heads. They're not just superheroes anymore.
Yeah.
They're real people with sometimes sharing their dark sides, right? And that's what we can connect with. So I don't know, that's kind of a cool analogy, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And the same as that Superman, the last one. Pat, I want to congratulate you on one huge thing, your audience. Your fan base is it's unbelievable how engaging they are with you. They're awesome. I have to admit that. Because a lot of the people who are listening to the Entrepreneur Adrenaline Show, they interact, but your fans interact with you in no other fans that I've ever seen before. So if you don't mind, giving us some piece of advice on what you do and how you get get your fans to actually just literally be diehard fans.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like what we just talked about, really putting myself out there and sharing a little bit about myself to be able to connect with people in a way that they would connect with a friend, that they would want to back up or want to become fans with or want to root for, I guess, if you will. I also bring myself down to their level as well, and I'm not afraid to talk about my mistakes and my failures too, and I think people appreciate that. And it gets them to be able to interact with me more or feel like that they have the ability to talk to me on the same level instead of just this guy who's on this really big pedestal, but somebody who's on the same level as them or at least understands where they're at, and they can communicate further that way. And beyond that, I always ask people to, I give them permission and to leave their opinions and to respond, which I think, a lot of people, especially who are sort of successful, they don't do, or they don't allow, or they don't really ask for. And so I always am open for people sharing their opinion, whether it's positive or negative. As long as it's respectful, I will listen and I will talk. back and I will reply. I think that's really important too. I try to go out of my way to reply to as many people as I can on the blog and also via email, which also helps me stand out. And it's why I've been able to create this sort of raving fan base. And also, you know, beyond anything is really just going above and beyond with over delivering on my content too, and always putting them first. And I know I can make a lot of money, and I could probably make a lot more if I were to promote all these, you know, joint venture offers that I get for products that I could potentially earn $3,000 to thousands of dollars off if I were to sell them. And I have an audience now that if I just say, go buy this, without even explaining what it is, they'll buy it. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. And I have to really, really be conscious about what I'm doing or what I'm saying or what I'm recommending. And so I always put my audience first, and they know that. And I think they can see that through the content and through my sort of filtering through what's useful and what's not, and sharing what it is with them. And again, going above and beyond with content delivery, making things easy for them. And again, putting myself on the same level as them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you recall back when you kind of got started, how, you know, your fan base kind of got built up? Because, you know, in the beginning, it's getting that ball rolling, that momentum. Yeah. And I love to relate to the same thing of any like, you know, successful, wealthy entrepreneur, you know, out there. You know, Shark Tank, for example. You take one of them, Barbara. You take Barbara on Shark Tank. If that show wasn't there, and, you know, Barbara was walking down the street with her dogs, you know, just up walking down the street, you know, somebody wouldn't quite be a fan because they haven't really seen or heard, you know, that level of success that they've achieved. So I always look back, and I kind of go back to, just so you know how I kind of found you. This was years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago. You know, I was looking on YouTube for a way to create something. I forgot what I was creating, something in a PowerPoint presentation. And I actually saw you with your own bamboo, okay, which I got, by the way.
Nice.
I saw you, well, I saw what you were creating. You were actually doing this on-screen presentation, and I was just blown away by, like, holy cow, that is like amazing stuff that you actually have. And I wanted to know more about you and how you create it. So I got what I needed at the time, and I went on with my day. But then eventually, as time started progressing, I started looking for different stuff. And on YouTube, you would always pop up, which is phenomenal, which is awesome. You would always pop up. So again, it started building that whole credibility in my mind that, hey, so I looked into your website, and by the way, your new website's phenomenal. that's congratulations on that. And that again, when I saw your income level of where you're at right now, and if you don't mind sharing, you know, where you're at, you know, right now, with the audience, just so they know the type of information that you're pumping out here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as income level, and last month I made over $53,000 just in July. Actually, I had a launch of a product, so that was my first six-figure month, which was pretty crazy, and I was very proud of that. I'm not going to be at $1 million this year, which is crazy even to say that or even fathom that. I mean, it's still ridiculous when I say that, but I'm going to be, you know, it's estimated that I'm going to make about $750,000 this year online. And the crazy part is that, like, I feel like I'm doing it the right way, where I'm providing information and people are paying me back as a result of me being able to help them, instead of, you know, hiring the best copywriters or doing all these other things that these really big time internet marketers do. And they focus a lot on the copywriting and all the strategies and stuff. I just focus on the relationship building and the providing of value. And I have that, and my results and my case studies and those things speak for me, because I'm not a good copywriter. I'm not a good salesperson, but I can darn well do an experiment and report on exactly what works and what doesn't. And I think people appreciate that honesty and the truth and the authenticity behind that even more. But it's really funny you mentioned about YouTube, because a lot of the videos on YouTube are a result of the questions that my audience asks me. And whenever they're looking for sort of tutorial style type things, I'll create a YouTube video. And that's been really good with growing my traffic. And that's helped. That was actually the first platform outside of my blog that I expanded to. That was in 2010. And that really helped take my blog to the next level. And then after that, it was the podcast. And then now it's things like writing books on Amazon and public speaking. So always trying to get off that new plateau and go to the next level. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. But in the beginning, yeah, I mean, it's hard for everybody. I mean, I started from scratch too. And really what helped was, doing a lot of unique things in the industry, like the monthly income reports. That really helped me stand out. But just keep pumping great content out there. It's eventually going to be found. And if you can build relationships with real people in the industry and make real friendships, I mean, they're going to link to you, they're going to appreciate you, and things are just going to happen from there. So beyond just delivering value and over delivering on content, I think it's really important to actually create real relationships with people in your industry as well, just like you and I are doing right now. I mean,
Yeah.
because now we have this friendship and we can both help each other out, or if you
Yep.
need some help, yeah, I can help you, or whatever, back and forth. I mean, that's really what it takes. You can't do this alone. You can't be an entrepreneur on your own.
No.
Yes, you can have your own business or you can have your own blog that is yours, but in order to succeed, you need the help from other people. That's why I'm in 3 different mastermind groups, and they mean the world to me. I will do anything I can to help those people in those groups because I know they'll do everything for me, and they have. So that's why I think, that real interaction and being open and honest, or being open and willing to hear honest feedback from people, knowing that they're just trying to help you, is really important too. Because again, if you're doing this on your own, it's really hard to understand what it's like on the outside because we're so deep into our own projects. It's hard to see what that third party view is like. So asking your audience and also asking your peers for your help too, to help you grow, is really important too. But one thing I wanted to mention really quick, when it comes to just starting out, I mean, anybody who's on your blog reading it, anybody who's leaving comments, especially if you're just starting out, you really have to nurture those people and know that those are the most people in the world, and have them understand that that they're the most people in the world. It's your first 100 fans, your first 1,000 fans. You hear about that. That's how you really get to the next level, because that's when you have the opportunity, because you don't have that many people on your site, to really go deep into those relationships with the people who are on your site, discover what it is their pains are, what they want, what do they want you to write about or create content about, and they will feel like they're getting catered to, and they will help share your stuff with other people, and then you can just take it from there.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to touch up on is because, I'm both in the offline and online. I believe in diversification. And I've been in the offline security business because I've been doing it for 9 years. It's what I'm good at. I actually have my own door-to-door mastery program. I actually started off doing door-to-door sales and did really well throughout my career. But one thing I want to point out is, my company, my offline company, has reached the $1 million per year income. However, the amount of profit is very little with the amount of overhead, my expenses. I look at your income report, and the reason why I'm really going strong and aggressive in the online world is because it's crazy, your profit margins, as of opposed to, the offline. Like if you actually really got into the details of, how much profit there really is in the offline compared to the online, it blows my mind. So, the amount of money you're taking home, even though my company is generating more in revenue, yours would blow it out of the water. And, it's still a big work in progress. But again, the one thing we have is a strong, solid team. And, just like yourself, you have those right relationships, like you said, you have that team. And one thing I want to touch up on what you said is, really connecting with one another, being true and genuine. I myself, I completely believe in that. And you have to do it together, not by yourself. Now, I play hockey, and I played hockey for a real long period of time. Any sport, Mark Cuban says, business is just like a sport. Now, I don't know any sport where there's just really at hockey, for example, I don't care if you even brought the best player on the ice. If you had a team, you're more than likely going to beat the one, even though he's the best player, maybe an NHL hockey player, but you know what I mean? It's like one guy cannot take on another team, and building that right team, everybody working together in sync with one another, we really complete and accomplish a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the one-man sports, like tennis, for example. I mean, you can't become a star tennis player on your own. You need a coach to drive you. You need people to support you along the way, because it's going to be tough, because you're going to be putting in hours, and you're going to have to get help from people when you're down, or after you lose a match or whatever. You just need somebody to pick you up. These are the types of things you need in business too. So it's not just the team sports, it's the individual sports, but those individuals aren't doing it completely on their own. None of them are. Tiger Woods is getting swing practice, from coaches. Like, those are the types of people who will succeed, people who know that they're at a high level but want to continue to educate themselves and become better. And that's what we all need to do. Absolutely.
Pat, your online success, has it changed your life in any way? And if it has, how has it really, uniquely changed your life?
Yeah, it's interesting because I always think back to when I was laid off, and what would life be like if I wasn't laid off? And I think I would still be happy. I'd still be working hard and doing my architecture thing, which I do miss sometimes. I mean, I went to school for 5 years for that. That's what I stayed up every night in studio doing. And so I do miss it. But I think I would have been happy, but I wouldn't know what it would be like to be this happy. And it just introduced me to this whole new world that was available here, not only for just making lots of money, but of course what the money could do for you. And that was the freedom and to do what you want. And for me, to do what I want is basically be here at home with my kids and being able to spend all my time with my kids, and that's something I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do. So I'm completely blessed because that is my number one priority, is to be there for my kids, and the focus that I have online and the businesses I have allow me to do that, which is so cool, and I'm just so happy about that because, you know, I get to see all their firsts and talk to them and teach them. I mean, my kids are incredibly talkative, and I know it has to do because both my wife and I just chat with them all day. We don't put them in daycare, and that's not to say people who put their kids in daycare, that's a bad thing. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but I'm just so fortunate to be able to live this lifestyle, which is different because I have, you know, these freedoms that allow me to do what I want, which is, again, spend time with my kids. Now, I've known some people to become completely successful online, to make, you know, half as much or as much as me or even more, who have become different people as a result of becoming successful. And some of these people used to be my friends, and they aren't anymore because they've changed, and they've changed their ways, and the money has changed them. And so I really try hard not to make that happen for me. And even though I say that, I know that, you know, it's a very common thing. So I'm always looking out for that, and I always have people, including people in my audience, keep me in check at times. I have my family keeping me in check. I have everybody around me in my mastermind groups keeping me in check. I directly ask them, hey, if you see me going off this path that I love, and these are the things that I want, if you see me getting off this path, like, punch me in the face, like, seriously, like, I will need that help, because people that I thought were strong, you know, the money changes people. And so I'm very fortunate to be living the same sort of lifestyle I would have lived. I'm just, you know, it's a little bit more secure. We have more money in the bank, of course. We just bought our first house, which, you know, we plan to do in the future, but, you know, I get to do it when I'm 30, which is pretty awesome, and move to a really good school for the kids, next to a good school for the kids. So thank you for that. That's sort of the first big purchase we've ever made. So, you know, beyond that, I mean, everything else is exactly the same. I mean, we're not buying fancy cars, and, you know, as much as I want to buy a DeLorean, like, it's not the right time right now. And I swear, like, I want one so bad. Like, I have a scale model right next to me.
Nice. But, mine's a Lambo, and I have a scale model of a Lamborghini. It's been ever since a kid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in that regard, everything is the way I feel like it should be right now. And again, I have other people keeping me in check to make sure I'm living the life I want to live, because sometimes, you know, I've seen other people who aren't living the life that I know they would normally want to live, just money has changed them.
Absolutely. No, and you know, for me, when I was doing my whole door-to-door sales thing, I actually generated $314,000 in profit in 1 year, and it didn't change me. There's a lot of people, when you said that resonated within me, because there was a lot of other people up there with me who started and really worked and built this company up, and was making that money, and it changed them. I'm talking people who are, their core values and beliefs, you know, who are very religious before, turned to gambling, and like you said, I'm so proud of you as saying, really, and it's nothing to be ashamed about to say I let go of those people, because, you know, like myself, I have 2 kids as well, and when you're saying staying at home with your kids and, you know, having, you know, your wife not have to go to work with the children, you know, we do the exact same thing, and it really is a blessing. And people always say, they're like, wow, you know, your kids are 3 years old and 1 year old, and I really noticed they're like so advanced, and you nailed it dead on, because being an entrepreneur is as well, you know, about managing and balancing your time with your family and, you know, your life, because you know as much as I do, if you don't have a balance in that aspect of your life, well, the whole online, the success in actually your business, it really does take a toll on your day-to-day, you know, routines of what you do. But another thing to kind of point out, where I watched one video with you and your family in an interview, and I sent it to you in an email once, where your son is just jumping all over the place, clapping, and you're just hitting you in the head with the ball. I believe I emailed you, because that's exactly my son, what he does. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. I thought I was literally the only one, and my son was the only one that did it. So you made my day.
I mean, that video was done maybe 6 months ago. He's still the same. He's just ridiculously hyper. Yeah. But you know, I love it. I mean, I love it. I wouldn't change a thing. But it's difficult sometimes. And yeah, when you talk about the work-life balance, it's tough. It's a very big issue, actually. You know, a lot of people become entrepreneurs to get away from the 9 to 5, and then they find themselves working 9 to 9 or more than that. It's tough because it's addicting to be an entrepreneur and to see yourself put in the work and then actually see results come out of it. I mean, that's so addicting. I love being able to work on something really hard, put it out there, and have other people enjoy it and have it reward me in return. But you have to also remember, well, why are you becoming an entrepreneur?
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm lucky that I have a wife at home, and we've talked about this. in heated discussions about, okay, well, okay, you need to schedule so that your brain she's talking about me, your brain needs to turn off so you can turn on the family time brain. And then that's helped me in so many ways, not only having a schedule, but a physical space in my house where I can do work, where when I'm in it, I'm in work mode. Everybody else in the house knows I'm in work mode. My brain's in work mode. And when I'm out of that room, I'm back in family mode.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking in the back of my head about the next email I have to answer, or that sale, or that thing on my site I have to change later. That's when the time comes around the next time to do that I'm allowed to do that.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to point out from being like in the online business, a lot of people who are pitching and like you say, the scammy type of people, which I heard before you say, which is, I believe in that too. A lot of people pitch, it's like, yeah, you just get your business up and running, one push button, and you sit back and you make a bunch of money. Is it fair to say, if you're thinking like that, don't even bother starting an online business if your whole goals and motive is to create, abundance, somewhat to say, online?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, that's not the way it works. I mean, people out there are so good at talking their game that they will convince you that that's the way it is. But you have to remember, okay, what are the real intentions? What's their true focus? Do they even understand what you're going through in life and what could benefit you the most? Or are they just trying to earn an extra dollar for them? It's tough. And sometimes it takes you going through those programs and understanding that was a scam to realize, okay, now I know for real that this isn't the case. Let me go do it the right way. Yeah. And I don't want people to go through that, because people get scammed millions of dollars a year from people like that. Which is why I really take pride in where I've become in this industry, because I know that, and I have people out there watching me to make sure that I don't, go down that route. Because it's an easy thing to do. I mean, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. There's a lot of people who have hopes and dreams that just are wanting that push-button solution, who will be willing to pay money out of their retirement accounts to make that happen. And then when they do that, it's just they don't see the success, and it's a really scary thing. Yeah. It's a really scary thing. So I would say that if you're going to invest in something, really make sure you know who you're going to be investing with, as far as your time and your money. And that they have a proven track record, and that maybe there's other people you can talk to who have worked with them, who you trust, and start with your own network too, obviously, or people that you know online who you've been following for a while that you trust.
Yeah, a lot of people that I coach, to becoming successful online, I noticed it starts with a limiting belief that they have in the back of their mind. Meaning, like, for example, right now, they'll watch this video, or, they'll listen to this podcast, and they'll look at, different people claiming all this different types of income that they're creating. And a lot of people will be quick to jump to say, you know what, it doesn't work, without even trying or testing it. And, to those people, that's not my audience. And, my audience is more of people who have kind of already got engaged and started and are looking to better their business. But, I was listening to a podcast with you and I forgot, it's another gentleman, anyways, where you guys were talking, and you were actually talking about the first $1.80, I believe, you actually created, which was kind of like your wow, like literally that's probably the best feeling of creating and making money that you actually had. I want to just quickly touch on this. I know we're running out of time here, but I want to touch on that because, for me, I've invested into the online business with my cousin, who's actually a part ownership in an internet marketing company that we do have. Now, he already created the success. So the belief factor in my head of, does internet marketing work? I was already brought in under the aspect of, yeah, it does, because he has a proven track record, somebody I trust. Now, for people who don't quite have that, I remember for me, he set me up with an AdSense account, and my first actual site, which is my videos, are still on YouTube generating passive income, which is what you talk about, still generating over, I don't know, I think 3-4 years ago. And it's still generating, passive income from that. And I set up a business where I was making about close to $200 even a day with it. And this came from something that started with my first $5. And when you said that, that's another thing that resonated within me. It was like, holy, that feeling about that first $5 for me. And that talk to us a little bit about that first $1.80, and then your beliefs of how that was more real to you and your journey.
Right. Well, before I even sold my ebook, which I had spent about a month and a half writing, I had discovered this thing, like you said, called AdSense, where you could put code on your site and it automatically generates ads that when people click on you, earn a little bit of the money from the advertiser in that respect. And I had put some AdSense code on my site that I had up. I had discovered that I had all this traffic coming in, and I was like, okay, what's the quickest and easiest way I can make money? And I found AdSense. And I put that on the site, and literally within 15 minutes, I had seen like $1.08 in my account. And yeah, I could find that like, under the seat in my car or my couch cushion. I mean, that's insignificant amount of money.
Yes.
But it was so significant because it was money coming in that was made online. It just changed my whole perception and really let me believe that this is possible, that I could do it. And so the big lesson here is, really, really appreciate the small wins. Those small steps that you take that'll help you get to your bigger goals. Those are so important. That first sale you make is another big one too. When you sell something, you really appreciate that because that's going to drive you forward and push you forward. There's a story. I don't know if you know who Stu McLaren is. He is a co-founder of WP Wishlist. He tells this great story. I don't know if you're going to have him on the show, but I might ruin this story, so I don't know if you can cut this out later. But
that's okay.
He tells a story about how when he first started to do online business, he created this like Halloween info product or whatever for costumes, or I don't know. It was a weird product, and then he kept like spending tons of money on ads to try and get people to buy it, and nobody would buy it. He would spend like $250, $500 on AdSense ads to try to get people to the site to buy stuff, and no one would buy his product. And then one year he was like, his sister and her fiance were in there, and they saw how sad he was and stuff. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, he had his first sale. And ever since then, he's been able to make millions and millions of dollars selling and providing value to people. And when Stu got married, his sister and her brother-in-law were there. And he was telling this story because he was on the mic. He was like doing one of the speeches. And he's like, Stu, when I saw you in that room that day and I saw how sad you were, you didn't get any sales, I actually told my sister to go and buy one of your products for you because I just saw how sad you were. And so it was that first sale, even though it was like not a real sale, in his head, that changed his whole perception of what he could do online. And he's since been able to move on and earn millions of dollars since that point. So I thought it was a really cool story.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Absolutely, I'll have to get him on the show here. Pat, what would be your advice, all wrapped up in a bundle, about how to create success for a person who has a pulse, has a business kind of going, all wrapped up, in a bundle to creating success?
Try to understand exactly what your unfair advantage is. What that means is, what is it that you have that nobody else can provide? What is it that's unique about you? Find out what that is, or even ask other people if you can't discover what that is yourself, and then milk the heck out of it. That is your unique selling proposition. That's how you stand out of the crowd. And beyond that, just take bold actions. Those bold actions is what's going to yield bold results. We tend to get into work mode, and we get into busy work, right? And we feel like we're doing stuff. We feel like we're progressing. But it's those big, bold actions, those things that may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's when something awesome is on the other side. And whenever that that resistance comes into play, or that fear to do something bold comes into play, that usually means whatever is on the other side is totally worth going after. And that resistance there is trying to stop you. And what's going to help you succeed is knowing that you're going to fight through and break through that resistance, because nothing's going to stop you.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more. That's so true. 100% on that. Pat, I want to touch up really quick on how it kind of itches me and drives me crazy. Public speaking is something I've been good at, and I'll tell you really quick, because I know we got to finish up here. But you're a phenomenal public speaker, just so you know.
Thank you. That means like a ton to me. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And the reason why I actually want to say that is I actually want to scream it out to you when I'm listening to your podcast, because I know sometimes you're like, and I get nervous before I go on stage, and I don't know. I'm telling you, man, I'm like, every time, like, dude, you're phenomenal. I'm like, I just can't wait till that interview comes. I have to tell him that. You're very good. I really mean that. And kind of for myself, and by the way, I'm halfway through, a little bit over halfway through your last podcast that I'm listening to about the public speaking, which is phenomenal, by the way.
Thank you.
It's crazy for myself and for you public speakers out there, because a lot of my my the people on my list here always ask me for advice on public speaking. For me, I kind of had it within me. I love being the center of attention. It's just something that's always been within me. And this was crazy. It's a true story. Back when I was in college, just so you know, when I was in college, I would party, and I don't mean crazy like drinking, and I've never touched drugs in my life, but I mean party as in I love the nightclub scene. I love to dance. It's something I used to do. I used to even teach choreography and stuff like that, but I love to do it, and I would go out late. And I was taking business and marketing, and I was doing that, and I remember I would miss exams. Anyways, long story short, I went to class one day. I was about maybe 5 to 10 minutes late, and I missed the one class I should have never missed with the wrong professor. This was a professor who was out to get me because I always showed up late, and it itched him. So I show up, and then all of a sudden the room is all quiet, and I sit down, and it's about like 5 minutes late, and the professor goes like this. He's like, "All right, Paul, so you ready? You're first." And I had no idea what was going on because I missed probably the last two. School was not for me. So he goes, this is a part of my whole biography, but anyway, he goes, "All right, Paul, you're up." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. Let me just put my stuff away, and I'm gonna start." And I go. There was a friend of mine named Georgiana. She was sitting beside me, and I go, "What exactly is it he wants? What am I supposed to do?" She goes, "Don't you remember? This is like one of the biggest presentations, the biggest things you got to do. You had to pick a business and present it in front of the class." I'm like, "Oh God." And I had no idea about anything I've never presented in front of a group of people in front of an audience. And there must have been like 20 to 50 people in that class. So I'm like, oh gosh, I always kind of at a young age in college, I wanted to have, a salon. So I went in front of the room, and I'm telling you, I started it off like in the back of my head. I remembered my best friend's mom who owns a salon, and I pictured in my head, this is exactly my business, and I just going to talk about my business. So I started going and going and going, and long story short, I nailed it. My first time, I nailed it. It was phenomenal. And people and her and a lot of people say, they're like, "You know what? That's just something you're good at. It's just something that you." And the teacher took me aside. He goes, "I'm going to be honest, Paul. I literally called you out first because I thought you weren't prepared. You didn't do anything. You were late, and you looked like you just stumbled out of bed," which I did. And I'm like, "Oh no, this was something that was huge for me." So it was crazy. And so coming from a person, just so you know, who's done a lot of public speaking. I've done a lot in the past, especially with salespeople locally here. You're phenomenal, Pat. That was a long story short.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I come from the total opposite spectrum. I was always the kid in the back of the class who never raised their hand, only talk when told to talk. So it was a long journey for me to get to this point where I could be comfortable on stage. And yes, I still get nervous, but I also know that I put so much work into the presentations that I know I do really well on stage. And I'm always looking to prepare. I hire coaches to help me. I've been reading books nonstop. I watch TED Talks every day to just try and improve, because I know that if I can master or get close to mastering this sort of public speaking realm, it's just going to help me out in so many ways in business, both vertically and horizontally. So that's sort of what my goal is there. And so that just means a ton to me, Paul. Thank you so much for those.
Oh, absolutely. And I've actually listened to the whole FinCon presentation, which unfortunately the video I saw that you didn't have it there with all the lost video. But phenomenal. Sorry.
Thank you. Actually, I got an email a couple days ago from the guy who lost the video, said that the company that they gave the discs to, because the discs were corrupted, they went through a second pass, a deeper pass into those corrupted data video cards, and they found something in there, and it's my presentation. So I could possibly get it back. I don't know if if it's all of it or just part of it or whatever, but there's a little bit of ray of hope that I could get that keynote that I've spent 250 hours preparing for, and I really hope it's going to come through.
That's awesome. And I hate to, do you have just 5 more minutes for one last thing? You do?
Yeah, totally. Yeah?
Okay, because I appreciate your time so much, and it really means a lot. So now when you were talking, presenting on stage in FinCon, it made a lot of sense when you were talking about tribes and building this tribe, and how you mentioned, it's like, I believe you related to that, or did I create it? But I think you said, if, for example, there was something happening, like a car accident or something, and 1, 2 people, 3, 4, 5 people show up, more people will gather because it's what the masses are actually doing. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the whole tribe aspect and teach us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, humans have a herd mentality, meaning we sort of look to the group to see what the right answer is or how to behave. And like the example you gave, the car accident, when if people are like, if you go to a mall, and I'm sure you've done this before, a mall or a public area, and you see a bunch of people gathering somewhere and you don't know what's going on, you can't help but think, what the heck is going on? And you go there and you look, and then other people will go there, and the whole group comes. It's this whole social proof thing. I mean, we look to the group to see how to behave or what to do.
Yes.
So you could use this to your advantage online by sharing that there are people on your site, by sharing subscriber numbers or testimonials, or showing that there's a community there, and really, really highlighting those things. That's why I do really try really hard to highlight the number of comments on my posts. That's just one example. I really have huge numbers showing that because I do get a lot of comments, and I want people who arrive on the site the first time to see, oh wow, this first post has 167 comments. Must be worth reading. I'm going to go in. That's the sort of idea there. So when you're selling stuff, talking about how many people sold stuff, like if you go to it, or how many things you've sold before, like if you go to basecamp.com, it's project management software. Right there in the beginning. I mean, these are pros. These are guys from 37 Signals. They wrote Rework and another book that's coming out soon. Right there on the front, it says, last week, 6,708 companies signed up for Basecamp. Like, you can't dispute that. And that's like, I mean, okay, sweet. 6,708 other companies can be wrong. I have to use this product too. So that's the sort of idea there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's 100% true. I agree. I couldn't agree anymore. Pat, it's been an honor. Please give my audience where they can get more information about you, your what you have to offer, and please plug yourself in and let's yeah. So sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks, man. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com, you'll see me there. You'll see all the connections to social media and all that stuff there as well. I'd love to hear what you thought of this interview. If you go to @PatFlynn on Twitter and just hit me up, that's my Twitter handle, @PatFlynn. Love to hear what you think. Thanks so much.
Thank you. One last thing before you leave. I promised you we'd meet with family at Ruth Chris. I know that's your you said your favorite restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I take my sales guys there when they do as a reward when they do it awesome. And next time I'm down in San Diego, I'm so sorry I missed you here in Arizona. I got extremely busy, and I know you were. So next time I'm in San Diego, let's meet up for that.
Sounds good, Paul.
Thank you. Hey, thank you very much, Pat. You take care.
Take care.
God bless. Bye-bye.